I am an Animorph. That's the name we made up for ourselves. Or actually, it's the name Marco made up for us. I'm not that clever with words. I wish I was more clever with words, I really do, because the story I have to tell is too strange and in some ways too beautiful for me to tell very well. You know, it's bad enough that this is a Cassie book, so people are already going into this with a bit of dread. But to basically declare the book as badly written in the first paragraph is just downright frightening. You might as well slap a Surgeon General's warning on this thing.
We all know it's called Superbook. It shows us all the places that we want to go and look. Superbook, Superbook.
I recently received a comment on one of my reviews calling me out on my extreme bias against Cassie, that I was going out of my way to find reasons to hate her, and that my bias was having an effect on how I reviewed and scored. Now, my knee-jerk reaction was to say things like, opinion is in the title of my show, and I've pointed out when Cassie was written well before, but it really got me thinking as to why I dislike Cassie as much as I do. Yeah, the environmentalism and higher morality pandering is very annoying, but I think my biggest problem with Cassie is how separated she is from the rest of the narrative. Up to this point, everything that has happened to her, every choice and conflict she has been involved with, has either left no effect on her, or has simply reinforced her radical convictions. We started to see her ideals challenged in number 9 The Secret, but in the most bizarre fashion, she ended up going full circle. Her character changed so much that it lapped itself and ended up exactly the same as it was. The Cassie status quo was upheld. I can graph out the ways the rest of the Animorphs have changed, either subtly like Rachel's increasive aggression and recklessness, or the not so subtle like Tobias's, "Hey guys, I got my morphing powers back, now I'm gonna complain a lot." If I tried to graph out Cassie's character growth, it would be a straight line, like a corpse hooked up to a heart rate monitor. I mean, has anyone else noticed that Cassie gets all the really stupid plots? The Buffa human, Australia, getting possessed by a ghost, Helmacrons. Sure, Jake got to Atlantis, and Rachel got split into 2 people at one time, but for the most part, the really stupid shit ends up at Cassie's feet. I think the reason for this is because these high-adventure, low-brain plots do the least to challenge Cassie's convictions. So yeah, that's the main reason for my dislike of Cassie's character. It's largely sidelined for most of the series with very little growth or exploration. So, how does this book stack up? Let's find out, shall we? The book opens up with a bit of a dry spell in Yeerk activity, so the Animorphs have been spending their time spying on sharing meetings. While watching a group of Yeerks discuss plans in the park, one of them suddenly freaks out and starts begging not to be taken to Visor 3. Not sure what's going on, the Animorphs decide to take the controller themselves and possibly gain information from her if they save her. They morph into their battle morphs, but when they make their move, a group of unexpected Hork-Bazirs show up, and there's a battle. I saw his throat, unprotected. "Okay, they've had it. Back away! Back away!" Jake yelled. But it was too late for the Hork-Bajir. Too late to keep the wolf that was me from doing what its instincts taught it to do. Too late. The Animorphs kill all the Hork-Bajir and escape, leaving all the human controllers just standing there. Remember that for a later review. I'm never doing that again. "Yeah, that was not a smart fight, but hey, we won," Rachel said. "No, I mean I am never doing that again," I said. "Never. I quit. I quit this stupid war. I quit the Animorphs." I turned and walked away from the others. I felt their eyes following me. Maybe if I hadn't felt so hollow, so weak, so sickened inside, maybe I would have felt the extra set of eyes on me. But I wasn't paying attention. I was done being afraid. I was done hurting other creatures. I was done being an Animorph. Well, with that little bomb dropped, Cassie returns home. Her father's watching television, where he just watched a news report about a leopard that escaped from some guy's personal zoo and is now wandering around the forest. Cassie's parents put on a way too happy face, but Cassie's a master of unlocking people's facades and asks what's wrong. It turns out that they lost the funding for the wildlife clinic they run out of their barn, and if they don't find more funding soon, they'll have to shut down. My dad muttered, The pet food company that was paying to support the clinic is pulling out. Oh, well, there's your problem. You weren't making enough dog food out of the patients. Cassie just feels numb at all of this, and her mood is made no better when she finds a small chunk of Hork-Bajir flesh still stuck in her teeth. I just kept thinking, it's all gone. Everything that was big and important in my life, all of it gone. My best friend, the guy that I liked, the animals I loved. What was I going to do now? What was I going to be? I was just another short, slightly chubby girl now. I had to tell Jake it was all a joke. I couldn't quit. Was I crazy? I couldn't quit. But then, in the darkness, I saw that Hork-Bajir. I felt my powerful jaws grinding. I've met a couple of free Hork-Bajir. The Hork-Bajir are a ferocious-looking race, 7 feet tall, with razor-sharp blades at their wrists, elbows, even on their legs and tail. But sometimes looks are deceiving. The Hork-Bajir use the blades to peel bark from trees back on their home planet. It's what they eat. They are peaceful herbivores. It wasn't the fault of the Hork-Bajir. He never did anything to me. It wasn't him trying to cut me up with his blades. It was the Yeerk in his head. That poor Hork-Bajir had no control of anything. But he felt the pain. He suffered. He suffered because of what I did to him. And now, whatever hopes he might have had of someday being free, well, those hopes are gone. Because of me. That night, Cassie has a dream about her and Tyrannosaurus Morph killing a Triceratops. Yep, here's that connection that makes it so you can't totally ignore Megamorphs number 2. A dream about one of the top 5 dumbest moments in a book made entirely of rat droppings. Since Cassie believes nature is bunnies and butterflies and still can't really handle the whole animals eat other animals things, Cassie is shaken by the nightmare and starts doing crazy wacko things, like brush her teeth till her gums bleed. It kind of reminds me of the first act of Antichrist, believe it or not. She finally starts to calm down and opens a window for some fresh air, but spots a flash of movement by the barn. The next morning, the Animorphs reconvene at Cassie's barn, sponsored by Pedigree, and everyone is ready to chalk up Cassie's actions last night to just nerves. But Cassie is insistent that she will no longer fight alongside them. That doesn't sit too well with them. Marco practically leaped at me. His eyes were blazing. What's the deal with you, Cassie? Half the time you're giving us all crap over being too ruthless or whatever. It's always, oh, is this right? And, oh, should we do this? I mean, you're Miss Morality, and then when you have a bad night, you just bail on us? And things just spiral down from there. I destroyed that Hork-Bajir, I said. Rachel's blue eyes went cold and seemed to look past me. It's a war. They started it. Of course you feel bad over... No, I said. I didn't feel bad. I heard Jake say to back off, and after he said that, I did it. I wasn't sure if that was true, but I needed to say it, to make them understand. No one had anything to say for a while. So you feel bad about it, Rachel said with a shrug. No, I feel bad because I felt nothing. I felt nothing, Rachel. At that moment, I felt like I was just doing my job, you know? And now they're shutting down the clinic and my dad tells me and I feel nothing. It's been going on for a long time. Each day, each battle, each mission, I just feel less and less. I looked at Rachel. She looked away. I turned to Jake. He made the ghost of a smile and nodded his head. He understood. He knew. It was happening to him, too. But then he looked away as well. I spread my hands, open, helpless. I can't not feel anything when there's violence. I can't not care about living things. I can't be like that. Marco laughed a short, brutal laugh. Fine. You have your morals and your fine feelings and all that. We'll go off and risk our lives to save the world. You just sit there and feel righteous. He left. I heard the flutter of wings and realized Tobias was gone too. It wasn't until my second read-through of this book in the early 2000s before I really grasped what was going on here. See, this book is partially about the flaws in Cassie's character that have accumulated over the last 20 books and putting them under the microscope. What's great about all of this is that it's made clear just how much her actions are affecting her friends and allies as much as they are affecting the reader. Most importantly, it's Marco, the occasionally psychotic strategist, who is most affected by Cassie's decision to leave. It really paints the two characters on the different sides of a scale. Marco is arguably the least selfish of the Animorphs. His only reason for not wanting to fight the Yeerks initially was for the sake of his father's well-being. And despite how much he kicks and screams, he'll go along with pretty much every mission. He is also the most logical Animorph, who rarely brings emotions into missions and knows when to cross the line of morality for the sake of the greater good. Cassie, on the other hand, is incredibly selfish and is the most emotionally driven. Her reasons for quitting the Animorphs isn't because the missions are hard or dangerous, but because they are causing her to snap out of her coloring book view of the world. I know this infuriates some readers, and they just throw it in the pile of Cassie's general bullshit. But for once, this idea is presented in a way I can actually get behind. The rest of the Animorphs are fighting to save the planet and all of its inhabitants, but since their conflict is retained to a single city, the majority of this planet and its inhabitants are nothing more than numbers and statistics. I mean, I know there are 1.3 billion people in China, and if I knew China might be destroyed and I had the means to save it, I would do so. But that wouldn't change the fact that I personally don't know a single solitary person in China and don't have the emotional connection as we do with the small group of immediate people in our lives. It's that reason why we're not all that affected when a complete stranger has died. We're not happy about it, certainly, but we tend to go on with our day just fine. However, Cassie seems to function almost entirely on this level of abstraction. She lives in a poetic, highly spiritual existence. She probably would cry over a complete stranger. It's not even that hard to imagine Cassie doing this.
I want to mourn the loss of all the old growth trees I've seen!
Her reason for fighting this war is not because she is trying to protect numbers, but because she is trying to protect this abstract idea of the universe that she has constructed for herself, her ideas to life and its meanings. However, as it is brought up in number 9, The Secret, that abstract ideal has given way to a rather harsh reality. Number 9, The Secret, challenged Cassie's idea of nature, that it can be cruel and vicious and ugly. This book shows that Cassie's ideas of herself have also been challenged, that a girl who simply wants to help hurt animals and protect nature can become a vicious killer. One that rips out throats. One that probably set Joe Bob Finestra's house on fire. One that doesn't care for the things she cared about before. I stood there, all alone with the animals. The goose was half bandaged. Animals needed their meds. Some needed feeding. And I didn't care. And that's why she feels she must leave this war behind her. Because the war is taking away those ideals that made Cassie Cassie. Am I saying she's justified in her decision? No, I am not. But I am saying that, perhaps for the first time, I understand where she's coming from.